For more than a century, Boschetto's Bakery turned out sweets and fresh bread from this storefront on Salem Street. But this month, the North End institution fired up its ovens for the last time, pushed out of business by a steep rent hike.
The rent went too high. The rent is crazy, you know what I'm saying? It's probably 5 times the rent what we pay right now.
For Boschetto's regulars, it was cause for mourning.
It's sad. It's very sad. You know things can't stay the same all the time, but the traditions you would like to see maintained, and unfortunately we're losing them.
That's because big changes are roiling the North End. Everywhere you look, traditional shops like Boschetto's are giving way to new upscale businesses. The demographics are changing too, with fewer Italian-American old-timers and way more 20-something transplants. Louis Cavaniero has lived here 75 years and says natives like him are getting priced out. Have you had a lot of friends over the years who've had to move out?
Ooh, a lot. A lot. 95% of us. I mean, there's only 2 or 3% left that are living here, and they're only here because their parents owned the building, and they weren't forced out. So that's it.
Still, among longtime North End residents, the dominant reaction seems to be less frustration than resignation. Maybe that's because once change like this begins, it's nearly impossible to stop.
You know, there's nothing you can do. They say after 80 years, every neighborhood changes.
Peter Baldassari is the man behind All Saints Way, a one-man religious shrine at the intersection of Hanover and Battery Streets. Over 7 decades in the North End, he's watched the central artery go up and then come down, reopening the neighborhood to the rest of Boston. As he sees it, the newcomers aren't too bad.
The new people don't bother nobody. Once in a while, the young kids have a party, but so what? I mean, it's still a good neighborhood. No crime, nice people.
Yet it's also a neighborhood where fewer residents than ever have Italian roots, just 1/3 according to recent estimates. And for old-timers like Louis Cavaniero, that can be tough to take.
Everybody was a cousin, a nephew, a brother-in-law. Everybody was somebody. Everybody took care of everybody. You know, it's changing now.
A change that may be Boston's loss.
And joining me now, 2 longtime residents of the North End who have seen it all, restaurateur Donato Frattaroli, hope I get this right, Frattaroli,
Get in there.
State Representative Aaron Michaelwitz. A little bit easier, but that doesn't sound like an Italian name.
That's the first time anybody said my name's easier.
Frattaroli and Michaelwitz. Yeah. So you can relate to what Adam saw there, that the prices, I mean, I was looking up $2,600, the average price for a particular unit. More than the Back Bay, more than Beacon Hill. I mean, that's how prices are skyrocketing in the North End.
Well, it's an attractive neighborhood to be in. You know,
it is.
And a lot of people do want to live there. It is a shame Boschetto's closed. I grew up literally right around the corner on Chief Street. And, you know, the North End has changed, or evolved, I think might be another term to use. But the difference is, you know, the neighborhood's still a great neighborhood. It's still a great neighborhood to live. It's still a great neighborhood to raise kids. The proximity of where people are, how everyone is really living right next to each other, on top of each other, that hasn't changed. You know, we're in each other's lives for better or for worse, and knowing everything that's going on, and that necessarily hasn't changed. To some degree, it has, though, because you know you don't necessarily know everyone that's living next door to you. The neighborhood has become a little more transient, and so your neighbors aren't exactly everyone that you used to know. So that has changed, but there is a lot of young people that are living there, and a lot of young families that are living there, raising kids, and I think it's still a great neighborhood to grow up in.
Now, you've had a restaurant, Lucia's, for 30-some years.
36 years.
36 years. Have you noticed any big change in the restaurant business?
In the restaurant business, a lot new restaurants opened up, but most of them are still owned by families. We still know the owners by first name. It's not that the big chains coming in. Some of them are trying to come in, but still, it's regarded one of the only place where the people go for Italian food and to feel what's Italian.
Well, and it does. I mean, when you walk down Hanover Street, you immediately feel like you are walking on an Italian street.
No, there is no such a better place than the North End. I remember people came from San Diego to see what we did in the North End. And it's still one of the best places to even bring up your children. I brought up my family there, and there's a lot of young families, they're still there. There is so much for the kids to do, see, and learn.
You brought up the issue of the chains and not being allowed in, but Pinkberry's, I know this frozen yogurt company is a chain. It's moved in. They've had a lot of problems with the neighbors, I understand. People not too happy about having a chain right there on Hanover Street.
I would like to answer that. We live in a very historic district of the city of Boston. And for many years, a lot of people wanted to make the North End an historic district. And then a lot of people said no. And there is a pro and a con for it. Probably they should put down some, we should have some regulations what the signs should look like, and try to keep them the same size and all of that. But you can't stop anybody from coming in, really.
So you're not opposed to,
I'm opposed
to chains
to it.
coming in?
Probably they should have different signage, but you can't stop them.
But it's not really about the signs. I remember the big battle over Starbucks wanting to put in a store down there.
What about Dunkin' Donuts?
And Dunkin' Donuts.
I mean, chains have been in the neighborhood for quite some time now. CVS, 7-Eleven, there are chain establishments in the North End, and they've been there for a while. But no one likes to see more chains. I think the fact is that people didn't want to see necessarily an empty storefront either. I think the owner of the building did try to find, other avenues to try to fill the store, and they couldn't do so, and then ended up going to Pinkberry, which has definitely created some stir in the neighborhood. Now,
how has the artery, the missing artery now, how has that changed sort of the makeup of the North End, or has it?
I opened up the North End and absolutely made it a much better place, much friendlier than what it was.
I mean, now you feel like you're part of the city and not
part of the
cut
city,
off.
You're not cut off anymore.
Right.
And by the highway being going all underground, done so much, not only for the North End, but for the whole city of Boston.
But that's got to be a major reason for the prices going up so significantly. I mean, the real estate prices.
The real estate prices, I would say, they're going up, but I would say they're comparing to Beacon Hill or Back Bay. We are the same way.
I mean,
even Charlestown,
right?
It's the same.
The prices have gone up, and but we're not a story in the North End that's not very similar to other neighborhoods around the city. Gentrification has taken place in Charlestown, South Boston. I mean, there's a lot of good things to that too. That it's exciting that people want to actually live in the neighborhoods that that we've lived in our whole lives. But there are challenges in trying to balance the kind of the old ways, the old style to the new style, and we're still trying to figure those out.
Because if you lose too much of that history, too much of that old part, then you take away that whole atmosphere that makes the North End what it is.
We cannot afford to lose it. And going back to what Aaron said before, it's still one of the only places in Boston that you go out, you know your next door neighbor, you know your butcher, you know your pharmacist or your greengrocer. There is no such a place in Boston like the North End.
People joked when I was running for office. They were basically asking me, how are you going to feel about being in the public life, or starting entering more in the public life. I said, growing up in the North End, it was always a public life because everyone knew what you were doing at all times.
Actually, when my kids were going to school, they were saying they were talking about diversity. I said to them, "What are you talking about diversity? My kids live that every day of the week."
Well, and that's a good thing. I mean, that's one of the good things that comes with it.
In the North End, you have everything going on. The kids see everything. So much to be said about living in the North End of Boston. There is no better place than that. The mayor, Salamartina, Aaron, they all did a fantastic job for us.
Now, you said your son is going to carry on your businesses.
My oldest son is fully invested in the restaurant business. And my youngest son right now is in college. He works in the restaurant. Hopefully they'll take it over. I got two nephews, Philip, which runs Ducali, and my nephew Nicky is opening up Ward A.
See, it runs in the family. Is there anything more the state should be doing, I guess, to help sort of facilitate businesses down there? Or
well, you know, one of the problems that we've had in the North End is really we were talking about this at one point in time, is that some of the higher clientele has decided to, you know, move some of their business to the Seaport because it is the more attractive place at the time. Yeah. But you know, there's other neighborhoods have been attractive at other points in time, like the South End, for instance. So how can we facilitate potential state assistance in that? I'm not really sure, but we should try to do something to try to make sure that other neighborhoods that have been traditional restaurant areas and places that people want to come to make it you know, more attractive or as attractive as possible to get them there.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you both joining us, and we appreciate you being with us tonight. I'm Gail Hoffman. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.